Imagine, if you can, soft, swirling, twirling mist, claiming mountains shaped like the spines of mythical beasts, and the air cold and fresh like homemade lemonade. Imagine an old stone bridge. Inconsequential, perhaps, but then again, perhaps not. A bridge which still stands and bears testament to a county tortured and cursed by the hungry and the exile. And so, to my story. The sun, as it does, rose in the east on the day of the fall equinox and awoke Annie McLaughlin. A meagre bowl of porridge with a large dash of salt waited for her on a wooden table. Her mother shielded her gaze because her moist eyes betrayed the wrinkled smile upon her face. Annie glanced around the modest room and saw the pale, chiselled-in faces of her 4 siblings fixed upon her. She smiled at them. She supped her porridge, saying nothing. The time had come. It was time to begin her long, wearisome journey. Her mother called out to her 2 brothers and 2 sisters, "Beg me a rash kalua." And then both women wrapped their woolen shawls around them and stepped out into the cold, damp air. Anne's flimsy footwear slapped onto the squelchy soil, soaking her feet. The first thing she would buy when she got her first wage would be a good, strong pair of boots. She was tired of the misery and discomfort of cold and wet feet. Hunger was her constant companion and walked everywhere with her. She gazed around and noted that if any place could make broken beautiful, it was certainly Donegal. Then a huge salty teardrop dribbled from her eye, but she brought her hand to her face and dried it. She did not want her mother to see her tears. Like many others, she too was a victim of the great sorrow that saw many Donegal people leave their homes to settle in Glasgow, Liverpool, and even the United States of America. Annie passed the hazel tree which grew upon the well of wisdom, ancient, rooted in the bones of the earth. The hazel tree bowed as Annie stepped by, as though she was in mourning. Now the silence was getting deeper, and the mist carried its own conversation. Both women walked, but no words were spoken. When Annie and her mother arrived at the bridge, they stopped, and their eyes fell upon one another. For Annie understood that this was the place of permanent parting. She would never see her mother again. There would be no see you later. The crossing of the bridge was a finality for both her and her mother. The wind pushed and swirled around them, but, like Annie and her mother, its heaving breath hung, failing to release the grief it contained. As Annie stood looking at her mother, she became aware, for the first time, that her mother's eyes were the same shade of sage green as her own. After a few moments, they locked their arms around each other, and Annie's mother whispered into her ear, bidding her well in her native tongue. Oh, how beautiful and soulful her own native language sounded. Annie loved the earthiness of it. Then, with sadness upon her, Annie turned and shuffled towards the muckish gap and began her long, wearisome journey to Derry, where she would board the boat to Glasgow. Time passed, as it does, and when she got to the county boundary, Annie took a sharp intake of breath. She let the sweet air dance on her tongue and committed it to memory, for she knew it would be the last time she would taste the Donegal air. Soon she would be spending her 14th birthday in a city where black smog would cough and choke the smile from her face. The air would bang with the heavy beat of industry, and she would be destined to live in cramped conditions. There would be no time to gaze upon the clouds and daydream. For 5 long minutes, Annie stood, motionless and silent. Then she took one last look at the Donegal landscape before stepping into County Derry. Annie saw nothing but the ghosts of her ancestors. Now her lineage was broken. Annie walked and walked. She walked until sundown. Then she lay down to sleep. She awoke in the morning and carried on her journey to Glasgow. The old bridge still stands. It's approximately 10 miles from Dunfanaghy in County Donegal, and it's appropriately named the Bridge of Tears.